Well, a new poll has been released which continues to confirm the severe lack of trust that the New Zealand public has in the mainstream legacy news media. And a recent decision by the Broadcasting Standards Authority against two 6 p.m. news bulletins confirms just how bad the reporting has got. Let's check it out. So not sure if you've heard of the Edelman Trust Barometer. It's in its 25th year. It's a global study published every January, and it covers a range of timely and important societal indicators of trust amongst business, media, government and NGOs. Now, more than 33,000 people took part in the 2025 global survey across 28 markets. And they also conducted the 2025 Trust Barometer research amongst 1,150 respondents from New Zealand in partnership with Acumen. Now, the Trust Index, the average level of trust across businesses, NGOs, government and media in New Zealand has been declining incrementally since 2022. And for the first time since 2022, the Trust Index puts us in the distrust category. New Zealanders aren't too trusting. Australia too has moved from neutral to distrust in the last year. And many of our major trading partners are also firmly in the distrust category, including Japan, the United Kingdom and the United States. Now, I want to look specifically at the media, but there's also a couple of other interesting results as well. The Trust Barometer shows that only 19% of New Zealanders believe the next generation will be better off compared to today, with the global average sitting at 36. So the average there, 36, and we're in the blue there, 19%. There's also intense skepticism of government officials, business leaders and journalists, with an average 61% of us reporting we worry about the leaders purposely trying to mislead people by saying things they know are false. And 68% of us say it's becoming harder to tell if the news being reported was produced by a respectable source or an individual trying to deceive people. Now, interestingly, the levels of trust felt in the lower income brackets has been relatively stable for the past 4 years, but they've seen a substantial decline in the higher income levels. But you can see here that the trust in general of institutions has dropped. We were there on the left, we're about the middle of the pack in the neutral zone, and we've dropped and we're now on the same score as the US. So maybe we better stop pointing the finger at what's happening in the US. But here's the key result. While trust in media has slightly increased worldwide, trust in New Zealand media continues to slide. So here's the data from 2023, 2 years ago. Media has the lowest trust of all brands and organisations. We're at 41%. But worldwide, the black bar there, it averages 50%. So we're disproportionately low. But remember that 41% figure. Fast forward to the latest data that has just come out. And we have dropped to, on the right there, 35 from 41% 2 years ago. Now, the drop they show there is based on last year's. I'm basing it on 2 years ago. It's dropped 6%. It's been a gradual drop over the years, but look at the global rate on the far right there. It's increased. Trust in news media worldwide has actually increased on average, but New Zealand has gone against the trend, which is a real slight on our media, isn't it? I mean, if you look there, media are even less trusted than politicians and governments. That's saying something. And the question was, which group purposely misleads people by saying things they know are false or gross exaggerations? Now, once again, journalists and reporters win the race, although you'll notice here that all groups are increasing. Up the right there, journalists and reporters winning the race. Now, worldwide, the countries that also had the most mistrust in their media were Thailand, India, Spain, Australia, Brazil, Malaysia, Singapore, US, Argentina, and Colombia. Most trust in the media was Japan, Kenya, Sweden, Saudi Arabia, and the Netherlands. And there was another question about trust in all news sources. Now, this survey doesn't include New Zealand, this result. but it does show a worldwide trend. And surprisingly, search engines are the most trusted at 63%. That's 2 in 3 people who trust search engines. Perhaps we need to do a bit more educating on how search engines such as Google can't always be trusted. And then it's followed by traditional media, then private media and social media, which is interesting because we're always told about how Facebook and X push so-called disinformation and misinformation. In other words, stuff the liberal left of politics don't agree with. But according to this graph, actually most of us can discern that you should not necessarily trust everything you read. And that's a good thing. But we're all just realizing that with the news media now. Now, before I show you an example of our news media being called out by their own watchdog, just a couple of other interesting results from the Trust Barometer that I noticed. And look, it did come out 2 weeks ago. I was going to report on it just over a week ago, but then I got the eye infection. So anyway, here's what the report said. It said that a sense of grievance is taking hold in New Zealand. 67% of us express a moderate or higher sense of grievance, and the global average is 61. And this is defined by a belief that the government and business harm them and serve narrow interests, and ultimately the wealthy benefit while the regular people struggle. So that's us there rounding up the top 10, where 67%, global average is 61. This one concerned me. This said that 24% of New Zealanders say that hostile activism is a viable means to drive change. Over 1 in 3 young adults approve of hostile activism, although I would warn caution on this result because the pollsters have lumped threatening or committing violence or damage to property alongside spreading disinformation and attacking people online. Well, there's quite a contrast there. But the fact that 12 to 13% say that violence or damage to property is okay is a worry. It also seems that the word discrimination, where is it? This one. The word discrimination has become cool, and we almost all need to fear it. In all demographics, gender, age, income, there has been an increase in the, quote, worry about experiencing prejudice, discrimination, or racism. Well, I wonder how much that is being driven by the media, or perhaps by schools and academics with critical race theory and the minorities, intersectionality, and oppressors versus the oppressed. Or perhaps we're all just becoming snowflakes. And this one won't surprise you, although it doesn't include New Zealand. The majority of countries don't trust the UN. Classic. It would be interesting to know just where New Zealanders fitted within that graph anyway. But look, let's go back to our media trust issue. And I want to give you an example, a recent example. The BSA released a decision just before my eye got injured, before I had an attack with the contact lens. The BSA released a decision on some news coverage by the 6 p.m. news on TV3, 3 News, which is produced by Stuff. Let me just read the decision. It says, the BSA has upheld 2 complaints from Action for Smoke Free 2025, ASH, about 3 news items reporting concerns about ash. The 2 news items aired in the last week of July 2024 in the 6 p.m. bulletins. The first item was presented as a special investigation into concerns about alleged links between ash and the pro-vaping lobby in Australia. The BSA found that it breached fairness, balancing and accuracy standards. The broadcast created a misleading, unbalanced and unfairly negative impression of the complainant by favouring particular critical perspectives while failing to adequately present Ash's position in response. Despite this having been discussed at length during an unaired 30-minute interview. This undermined the public interest in the story as the audience did not have the benefit of hearing both sides. The reporter did not fairly inform Ash about the nature of the story or Ash's contribution to it. Ash's comments on the issue were not fairly represented, meaning the item was unbalanced. And collectively, a number of statements in the presentation of Ash's position created a misleading and unfairly negative impression of Ash. Wow, that is damning. I mean, that reporter should, in my view, be sacked. But there was another item 4 days later. Same parties. The second item reported a school had refused to allow its student to take part in Ash's annual Year 10 vaping survey due to concerns about Ash's stance on vaping. The BSA found it was misleading and unfair to Ash and its directors as the item's live cross format presented this as breaking news, but did not disclose the relevant email from the school was from 2021, 3 years earlier. The broadcaster did not make reasonable efforts to ensure accuracy by failing to report important factual context which would have significantly altered viewers' understanding of the item, and the single comment included from Ash failed to respond to the issues and unfairly portrayed Ash in a negative light. The failure to include relevant and important information and to adequately include comment from Ash that responded to the thrust of the story demonstrates shortfalls in editorial processes and oversight on this occasion, in breach of the accuracy and fairness standards. Both broadcasts fell well short of the journalistic standards we believe New Zealand audiences expect from news programs. Together, they demonstrated a continued narrative favouring perspectives that were strongly critical of Ash, while failing to fairly present the other side of the story. That is shocking. That is truly shocking. I mean, I think the BSA nailed it when they referred to journalistic standards we believe New Zealand audiences expect from news programs. The problem is that we don't expect that standard anymore. And the Edelman Trust Barometer, as I've showed you, along with all the other surveys, confirms that. In fact, the AUT study is due out any time now, and a lot of people will be watching that one with interest, because once again, that's been showing a downward decline. I think a third of us trust the media according to that survey, and it's been plummeting downwards. Now, by the way, you're probably saying right now, Bob, I never heard about this survey in the news. Now, I was going to bring this news to you before my eye injury, but there was one report that I saw in News Talk ZB, but yeah, the focus was on, general trust, not about the media. But it is a sorry state of news media, isn't it? Now, while I was recovering from my fight with the contact lens, the story of Green MP Benjamin Doyle happened. It had been brewing for 4 days on social media. I was watching it with one eye, with concerns about the social media postings of the MP involving sexualised terms and sexualised images. But I actually already knew this was a disaster waiting to happen because Doyle had previously worked for the Burnett Foundation, formerly the AIDS Foundation. Yep, that grubby, hedonistic, narcissistic, government-funded organisation that put those anal sex posters up outside dairies and other objectionable posts. Let me take that down now. Fortunately, you and I kicked up such a stink that those posters were removed from outside the dairies, but that's his background. And it got to the point after 4 days where the legacy media could not talk about Benjamin Doyle. So, within 30 minutes of each other, these 3 stories all came out on supposedly independent media outlets, and here was their angle. Doyle was the victim. The media marching in step with each other to push a certain narrative. And they wonder why nobody trusts them anymore.